Here's another show you can enjoy in the True Story FM family of entertainment podcasts.
Ever wonder where the devil got his horns?
How about those cloven hooves?
Or that pitchfork?
Wasn't he an angel?
No, he was a snake.
No, he's the great red dragon.
No, he's the beast.
He's the prince of this world.
Prince of darkness.
Well, he's the prince of dark.
Good morning, star lovelies. One of my names is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I sometimes go by Keenan Diaz.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, The Devil's Details. What comes to mind when I say Lucifer?
How about Satan?
What about just the devil? How did the big bad of the Western world end up with so many faces? Join us as we dig up, decipher, and deconstruct the devil's many forms throughout history.
Take a guided tour with Dante through the 9 circles of hell.
Or revisit Satan's angsty bad boy years in Paradise Lost.
Learn the ins and outs of a Faustian contract.
Easier than a 1099, but with a hell of a lot more fine print.
Slither on over to The Devil's Details on True Story FM and join us in the diabolic discussion.
Love and hisses. Mwah! Didn't Al Pacino play him in a movie?
Are you sure that wasn't Robert De
I could
Niro?
have sworn it was Tim Curry.
That was Elizabeth
Didn't
Hurley.
he go down to Georgia at some point?
Hooked on you, baby, you're golden. Time moves, I never noticed. Just can't get enough. Got me wonderstruck.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Make Me a Nerd. I'm Mandy Kaplan, and as a mainstream mom, it is my mission to dive into the world of nerdery and see what I've been missing out on all these years. So I have been honored to have my toes dipped into the Star Wars pool a couple of times in past episodes. I have tried some anime, although I'm sure there's more classic anime in my future. And today I'm doing something that actually could be considered much more mainstream. But more than what I wanted her to bring, I wanted to bring on my very special guest. She is a podcaster. She is an improv actress. She is an all-around fantastic lady and true American hero. Ladies and gentlemen, Krissy Lenz.
Hello. I am so excited to be here to make you a nerd.
Thank you. If you can do this single-handedly, this could be my last episode.
Oh, perfect.
We could just knock this out.
Yeah, you become a nerd, bada boop.
2 women, I figure we can get it done pretty quickly and efficiently.
Yep.
I was in London recently. I'm so fancy.
Oh, lovely.
And we did a little cruise up and down the Thames, and they showed us this bridge. And the bridge was built during a war where all the men were away and only women built the bridge. And it got done under budget, under schedule. It's still it was like the most successful bridge build in London history.
World's best bridge.
Because we did it. I mean,
Yeah.
not you and me personally.
Rosie the Riveter.
There it is.
Fist. Yeah.
Yes, with your tatted arms. Okay, so how are you? And let's tell everyone how you and I know each other. We don't even live in the same state. We are only virtual friends.
It's true. We've never seen each other's lower halves.
No, tell the world about yourself.
I've never seen your feet. I'm
Krissy, we're going to fix that right now. There they are.
There they are. I'm a podcaster and a nerd. Everything that I do is somewhat nerdy, including the improv. My husband and I run a little improv theater here in downtown Mesa called the Neighborhood Comedy Theater, where we do shows and classes, all, made up on the spot, spontaneous comedy. My podcasts are based in nerdery as well, from geeking out about 80s movies on the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast to doing some role play gaming on the Cool Time Dice Hour to doing some exciting exploration of one of my favorite shows in the entire world, Supernatural, on Gank That Drank, a supernatural drinking game podcast.
Which can be found wherever people podcast, correct?
It can be found, absolutely, wherever you cast your pods.
Now, you said role-playing games, and that is something I am dying to delve into. So if you don't piss me off in the next 45 to 50 minutes, will you come back and maybe indoctrinate me into that world a bit?
Absolutely. I would love to.
Okay.
That's a big pond. Like, there are layers and layers and layers. It's that's a big one.
Right. I mean, the whole world that I'm exploring is so big. So it's, it's not really limited to just sci-fi, fantasy, TV and film. I'm trying to branch out into all sorts of things. There are some very complicated video games in my future. We'll see how that
Ooh, I'm no
goes.
good at those.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm no good at those. That's beyond me.
there's some stuff that I'm going to try, Krissy.
I can't
Let's
wait to hear all about it.
and you will on the next episode of Make Me a Nerd. Uh,
Yeah.
so you and I met actually podcasting on a pop culture
Mhm.
podcast for True Story
Mhm.
FM. Shout out. That is no longer, but we used to do a Saturday matinee podcast together.
Yes, and it was so much fun. Do you remember the one where we were guessing the theme songs?
Vaguely, but I
Yeah.
imagine we were both quite good at it.
Yes, indeed, we were.
And now I'm remembering we were both singing rather than just stating the
Yes.
names. We were both bursting into
Mhm.
song. So
Mhm.
I think this
That was
is
super fun.
yes, this is the worlds colliding. This is two worlds coming together that it's long overdue. So here we are,
Yes.
since Satmat is sadly no more. So you touched upon it a little bit. You proudly stated you're a nerd, and you said you're into some role play and improv. Now you said your improv is nerdy. I think of
Yes.
improv as having crossed over into the mainstream with Whose Line Is It
Oh.
Anyway and things like that. And the Christopher Guest movies, those things are not maybe super nerdy. Maybe they are considered more mainstream. What makes your improv company nerdy?
I think it's mostly that my kids are embarrassed of me.
Nice.
Yeah. They think improv is like super nerdy. And I would say of all the arts, if the arts were a high school cafeteria, the improv kids would definitely be the nerds because we'd all be like patting each other on the back saying, I got your back, and
Yep.
playing zip zap zop in a
Oh,
big circle while the cool theater kids were, smoking cigarettes and gossiping about us.
yes. Yes. And Zip Zap Zop is, for those who don't know, is the nerdiest of nerdy warm up games for improvisers and theater kids. It's
Mhm. Mhm.
It's, intensely nerdy, so you win. You did it.
Yes, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Have you ever dabbled in D&D? Am I getting personal?
No, not at all. I have dabbled in D&D. I have played a whole D&D campaign all the way to the slaying of the dragon at the end.
Spoiler
I
alert.
have played a level 13 druid in oh, what's the name of the one that's like D&D? It starts with a P, and I can't think of it right now. But it's similar to D&D. Pathfinder, that's what it is.
If they didn't play it on
Um,
Playing Theory, I don't know it.
yes, it's like a slightly easier version of Dungeons and Dragons, a little bit more user friendly. I have played some other role playing games, including one called Brindlewood Bay, where you are a group of old women who solve murders in a small coastal community.
It's like the Thursday Murder Club. I love it. Have you
Yes,
read
it's
those
exactly
books?
like that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's so interesting because being an old lady in a seaside retirement community, that's not sci-fi fantasy. There are no dragons involved, I'm assuming. But you are
There's no
role playing.
dragons. It's very cozy, yes, but you are role playing. You're making things up as you go along. You're rolling dice to see what the outcome of your actions are, and you're really at its heart improvising with the other players.
And this is called Brindlewood Bay.
Yes,
Is
it's
that
called
what
the
you
Murder
said?
Mavens of Brindlewood Bay.
Oh my gosh. This sounds, I mean, anything that hints even the slightest at Golden Girls, I am down for. So,
Oh, it's like Golden Girls meets Murder She Wrote.
yep, that
And it's
might.
really easy as like a role play game goes, because it's you don't have to like memorize stats and everything. Dungeons and Dragons is a lot of math.
Oh boy. Oh boy, I'm in
Yeah,
trouble for that episode.
because you've got like hit points and like armor class and like how much damage does your weapon do, and you've got to roll to hit
Can I
and
have
then
like a
roll
pocket
to
nerd
see.
with me keeping track of those things while I'm just doing funny voices or
Yes, you absolutely have to.
team up? Yeah.
Uh, there are programs online that will help do it for you. They'll do the math
Oh,
for you.
oh, good to know. You're
Yeah, they're
hacking it for
absolutely
me.
necessary. Yes.
Well, Krissy, when I reached out, you immediately answered that you wanted me to try this show. Can you tell people what it is and why?
This show is the longest running genre show ever to be on the TV. Of course, I'm talking about Supernatural, the story of two brothers, Sam and Dean Winchester, who rove across the country, saving people and hunting things, the family business. It's like I said, the longest running genre show that's ever been on TV, 15 seasons. It started in 2005. And I am mildly obsessed with this show.
And host a podcast about it, which is not just a podcast, but a drinking game.
Yes, it's a drinking game podcast. What we do is we watch an episode, we recap it, we make up drinking game rules, and then we discuss how the rules played out during the episode.
Which I, of course, being an avid drinker, said, can we make this a drinking game? And we did. So you very thoughtfully curated 3 episodes for me to watch. The pilot, and then one in season 6 called Fan Fiction. Nope, called The French
one in
Mistake.
Season 6 is called, The French Mistake.
And season 10, we did one called Fan Fiction. And then, so I watched and played with my husband, Jer. I think that's his name. And he and I followed the first 5 rules of the drinking game for the pilot, and they were the following. Do we tell the people the rules so they...
Yes, you tell them the rules up front so that they know.
And then if you guys want to listen to the rules, press pause, go watch the show and get hammered and come back. We're okay with that.
Come back hammered, yep.
So the first rule is, Sammy, take a drink anytime Dean calls Sam Sammy. If Sam corrects his name, drink again.
Yep, that one we play for all episodes.
As you should. Do you have the list up? Do you want to tell the people number 2, or should I?
Oh, I'll do it. Number 2, Gank. Take a drink anytime someone says Gank. That's the nomen of our podcast, Gank That Drank. So anytime they're going to say they're going to gank a monster, you take a drink.
Didn't come up in the pilot, unless I was really not paying attention.
No, it probably didn't.
Number 3 is anytime someone dies, drink, double it if we knew their name. Attention to detail is not my specialty, so I just drank double because I wasn't sure if we knew the name, but lots of
death. If you can't remember the name, there's plenty of death.
Yes.
Broken furniture, take a drink anytime someone goes crashing through a credenza or a window or what have you.
And thank you for that one.
That one's what we call a heavy hitter.
My Chardonnay got a workout. And then the 5th rule, which did not come up for a while, was angel wings. If we see an angel's wings, take a drink.
Yeah, the angels don't appear until the later seasons. Season 3, 4 is when the angels show up.
I won't spoil it, but the season 10 fan fiction episode, I might have been cheating, but there were lots of angels, but they were not real angels. So
right.
But hey, I'll drink for any reason. So
that's the idea of the podcast.
Yes, exactly. So the pilot starts with this very creepy, atmospheric first scene. A lovely young couple puts their baby in the crib and they go to sleep. And then, we know something's happening to that baby and things are creepy. And Jer was like, wait a minute. Is this show scary? And he got so scared so fast. And I wasn't really aware of what I was getting into. So I was like, I'm sure it's fine. And that was the creepiest it got, I think. That opening sequence was intense.
Mm-hmm.
And very well done.
And it comes back to that throughout the show so much. That's like the backbone of the first several seasons. It's what happens to Sam and Dean's mom, and how dad reacts to it. So that you get a lot of that in that first episode of how, like, we got to do what dad wants us to do, and dad wants us to hunt the monsters, and dad's missing, so we got to take dad's place.
Now, you didn't assign me the word dad as a drinking game, but that might have been...
that would be a good one.
Yes.
Take a sip, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we both had our jaws on the floor after that opening sequence. And in fact, I watched it twice because I found it a bit confusing because a lot of it takes place in the dark. Flickering Lights might have been another nice
Yeah.
drinking game one. I just couldn't quite follow what was happening. So I rewatched it and then finished it. And that's the moment I realized I wasn't watching Smallville. I said to Jer, when does he become Superman? I thought this was about Superman. And he was like, no, that's Smallville, you idiot.
Yep, that's Smallville.
Yeah. So that's how little I know about these shows. And I don't watch a lot of even hour-long shows. Procedurals I'm not into. So, this was a big leap for me into this world. But very quickly, I realized it's like the Hardy Boys.
It is just like the Hardy Boys. Yeah, they're out there solving mysteries. They're fighting monsters. They're running into a assorted cast of characters that sometimes recur. And that's a very great description for them. They're just two little brothers out there saving people and hunting things.
Right? Am I the first to ever say that? I'm a genius.
You're a genius. You nailed it. Yep.
So did you watch Hardy Boys growing up?
I did not. No, I was never a big Hardy Boys fan.
What did you
Yeah,
watch?
I
What
don't
were
know.
were you always did you always have an affinity for shows about supernatural stuff? What did you watch growing up?
I definitely love supernatural shows, and I was a big like CW girl, of course. Like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a big one. The X-Files was huge when I was younger. In fact, on my second date with my husband, I told him we had to stay home and watch the X-Files because I didn't want to miss it. So that was our date, was sitting home and watching the X-Files, because you had to see it when it came on,
Right.
or who knew when you were going to get to see it again.
Yes. So this is the moment I realize I am so much older than you, Krissy,
Oh, yes.
because you were young. The CW was when I was already 50.
I think it was like UPN back then,
Yeah, but I was not a kid.
or even like the WB.
So when I say Hardy Boys, are you thinking, my mom watched the Hardy Boys?
No, no.
Are you, Krissy? You can say it.
No. But I didn't watch the Hardy Boys. No, I when I was even younger than that, like I watched a lot of X-Men cartoons.
Mhm.
There was a cartoon called Gargoyles that was like very Macbeth meets like these flying chimney monsters.
Ooh.
Is that a weird
I
a weird
never
thing?
heard of it. I mean, Gargoyles to me screams Ghostbusters, but,
Oh, and of course, big fan of Ghostbusters. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So I think you and I were slightly different ages. Scooby-Doo
Mhm.
had a lot of supernatural stuff. This is more akin
Mhm.
to Scooby-Doo for me.
Scooby-Doo, yes. In fact, there's an animated episode of this show called Scooby Natural, where Sam and Dean go into Scooby's world and have to work with the Mystery Machine Gang to solve
I love it.
not only the mystery of the episode, but also why are they stuck in a cartoon in a Scooby-Doo episode.
Well, they did a similar thing in the season 6 episode, but we'll wait. We'll wait to get there. Now, I'm very critical when it comes to writing and acting, just hyper critical. And I gotta say that the writing and acting on this first episode left quite a bit to be desired.
It's very 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Did you think that, like, even for 2005, it wasn't that great?
Well, there was very exposition-y stuff, and Jensen Ackles was not so good in this pilot episode. Trying a bit hard, I felt.
Trying a bit too hard. He's a pick me, as they say these days.
What's that?
That's
pick
like
me,
where
pick
you're
me?
like, ooh, pick me. Yeah.
Oh, I've been that my whole life. I never had a term for it. Thank you. but I did like the tone, and there's so much humor. It never takes itself incredibly seriously. I thought some of the special effects are obviously very out of date, but some of them were very effective. They drive to try, their dad has disappeared. They take off to go find him, and they discover there's a woman in white in this small town. And I liked the lore of a woman in white because that's something we see in the news, a woman who has gone temporarily insane and murdered her own children. and then taken
Mm-hmm.
her own life. Is that a real term from the news?
I think it's like a real term from lore, from
Yeah.
like urban legend. Like the first couple of seasons are really steeped in urban legend and local lore and things that you would hear like passed down from like cousin to cousin on camping trips. Like the second episode deals with a Wendigo,
What's
which
that?
in the Southwest, we hear about those all the time because they're supposed to live like out in the woods, and they're like a Native American spirit that will like get you if you're like
Mm.
in their woods.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do like a Bloody Mary episode, and
Oh God, that still scares me.
yeah,
Bloody
and that
Mary. Yeah.
episode is pretty scary.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like you look in the mirror and there's nothing there, and then you look back in the mirror and it's a jump scare.
Well, they do jump scares really well, even with their
Mm-hmm.
lack of CGI prowess when back in 2004. 4?
Mm-hmm.
5.
2005.
5.
Yeah.
But the woman in white gets in the car, and then she's not in the car, then she's in the back seat, then she's back in the front seat, and she keeps disappearing and reappearing. And I thought that was really well done.
Mm-hmm.
It was,
She's like flickery.
yeah. But no,
The
she
ghosts are all
literally, he's
flickering.
talking to her, and then she's not in the passenger seat anymore. And he's like, where did
Mhm.
you go? Where did you go? And then she just appears in the back seat. So not even the flickering, which I thought was well done. I just mean they do jump scares well on this show.
Yeah. And it is, it can be a little bit scary, but I think the fact that it's also funny makes up for it.
I would totally agree. That's one of the things people love about Murder, She Wrote and Hardy Boys and mystery shows is when our
Mhm.
detective characters are snarky and funny and
Mhm.
have a quip at the ready. And
Mhm.
they definitely do.
And in the first episode too, there's a lot of like tension between the boys. Like a big part of what they're leaning on in the pilot is like Sammy's reluctance to be a monster hunter and Dean's like need for them to be together and be a team.
And speaking of Sammy, very quickly after 5 sips of Chardonnay, poor Jer now had to manage me. And he's like, drink. You're not paying attention. That was a window. Go. And so thank you to Jer for guiding me through the drinking game aspect of this. I dig the tone. Is that what hooks you, or do you prefer? I mean, obviously you love this or you wouldn't have chosen to do a podcast about it. Is it your favorite, or is it just that it has the biggest fan base? What draws you to Supernatural as a subject?
I would say it's probably truly my favorite because it does go on such a ride with you during the 15 seasons. And as in the next episode I had you watch, the reason I kind of picked them is because I think that with a nerdy show that has lasted as long as Supernatural, like Doctor Who is another good example.
Mm-hmm.
It can be really intimidating to like jump in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily recommend watching episode 1, 2, 3, season 1, 2, 3. Like, I think you have to sort of jump around and sample a bit so that you get a sense that the tone is going to shift.
Big
And
time.
big time. And the show is going to really take some twists and turns and evolve into something so much more than a typical CW mystery show would possibly predictably become. So you jump around a little bit at first, and then if you get hooked, then you go back and watch episode 1, 2, 3, season 1, 2, 3,
Right.
so that you get the lore and you get the arcs and you get all the juicy bad guys and
Yeah.
all of the stuff about dad. And but first you need to know that this show is going to become something more than just two brothers in an Impala.
You have a future in sales, my friend, because you did a great job in selecting 3 episodes that would hook a person. And but I'm not ready to go to episode 2 yet. I would like to stay on
Okay.
episode 1 for just a couple minutes more, because it really, the other 2 you sent me shift tones so dramatically. So I have a feeling this one is more what seasons 1, 2, 3 would be. They go out to a different place. They're
This
trying
one
to
is really what the beginning
typifies
is
what it
about.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have I look for inaccuracies, continuity errors, things like that. I think we all do, right? And
Love
my
it.
my big my big gripe, I want to say beef with the show, pun intended, is that they go
Mm-hmm.
into a hotel room that their dad has been living in for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them smells a day-old hamburger and goes, "Oh, oh," and I'm thinking, no, that looks delicious. A day-old hamburger would smell fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And after half a glass of wine, I would take a big old bite of it. So I just feel it's not accurate. That's not true. A day-old hamburger is going to smell pretty good. Am I wrong?
I think that a lot of things that the boys encounter probably smell worse than we think that they
Right?
do. Like, there's probably a lot of lingering BO in all of those spaces that they inhabit.
Mhm.
There's a lot of musky man stink probably infecting that burger. So,
I don't-
I don't
I'm just
know.
thinking the pickles and onion are going to win out, and
Yeah,
that might have
yeah,
been a
yeah.
nice relief from where they had just come from.
Mm-hmm.
I'll write a
Uh,
strongly worded letter to the CW. Or it
and
was
let them know.
WB back then? How did that work? It was WB when it started and became CW, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes, it went
Um,
through the transition and everything.
yeah. Well, that's when I got hungry and had to get myself some nuts. And
Mm-hmm.
just so you're aware of the situation at my house.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Good.
but the music is very 80s. So I wrote, no wonder
Yes.
Krissy loves it. The music is a real nod in the same way Stranger Things does that. It's,
Yes.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's supposed to feel evocative of the 80s. And then the episode started with that creepy ass scene with the mom and
Mm-hmm.
ends with a creepy ass scene. And they were really great bookends. So
Mm-hmm.
even though I took some issue with some of the exposition and the writing and the acting in the middle, those bookends had me wanting to press play on the next episode.
Excellent. Yeah.
Well done, Eric Kripke,
Yeah. Eric
creator of
Kripke, man
Supernatural.
knows what he's doing. Yep.
So I hear. The Boys is another one on my list for at some point.
Yes. The Boys is a lot.
At some point, once I've had my primer,
Mm-hmm.
we're in phase 1. Supernatural was a great. It's a nice crossover because
Yes.
it is pretty mainstream and there's lots of cute boys. And if if
So
you had
many
to
cute boys.
if you had to pick which one, who are you a fan of?
I'm a Dean girl myself. Like I'm into Jensen Ackles. I think he can do anything. I'd love to see him. Of course, he's in The Boys now, and he's been in a couple of different shows since Supernatural ended. But I'd love to see him like sort of break out of the genre
Hmm.
area and do some more. Like I'd love to see him in a movie. I think he could do, you know, we're always like recasting on the 80s podcast, like, oh, if you were going to remake Die Hard now, who would you pick? And I'm always like, it should be Jensen Ackles. Jensen Ackles can do anything.
Interesting. I read, I had to look these people up because I was not familiar with them. And I read that he's
Mhm.
also a musician.
He's a musician. He has a beautiful voice. It's a worthwhile endeavor to look up footage of him at the Supernatural conventions, which I've also been to.
Oh, I
He will
love
play
it.
guitar and sing, and he has a beautiful voice. And he's also owns a brew co. It's called the Family Business Brew Co. in Austin, Texas.
I love it. You have won me over. Anybody who sings, I'm a fan of. I just think he
Mhm.
looks a certain way. He looks like an all-American frat boy douchebag.
Mhm.
And it's nice to know he has all this depth and other stuff. So
Yes, and
good for you,
you
Jensen
really see him
Ackles. Good
grow
for
up
you.
on the show. Yeah, way to go,
Well,
Jensen.
that brings us to season 6, The French Mistake,
Mhm.
because immediately I take notes while I watch because I have no memory these days. And I said, wow, Jensen Ackles has completely improved. He's really in the pocket. What a huge leap from season 1. And Jer turned to me and said, wow, this guy's gotten so much better. So
Yeah.
we were, he really, now I do find him to be a great actor on the show.
Yeah, he really improves, and he sinks into it. And it's season 6 for the show. Famously the show was supposed to be 5 seasons and over, and then they every season after that was sort of like, ooh, will they or won't they? Is it gonna keep going? Until eventually, like once they got past season 10, it was like, nope, we're never stopping. But season 6 was kind of a surprise. So I think that could have possibly fed into it some, was that there was a real excitement through the cast and crew to be still getting to make Supernatural.
Absolutely. And the episode you assigned me is a total flip on its head Twilight Zone experience, where it starts that they're facing off with an angel and a demon, and then somebody yells cut, and they realize they're in the TV version of their own lives. And
where they become the Jared and Jensen of the real world, and they like make fun of themselves.
Correct. And I noticed then I didn't get to drink when he didn't call him Sammy anymore. So I was like, damn you, Krissy.
Sorry.
Right? Yeah.
But we have the special rule for this episode.
Oh, right. Thank you. What's the special rule?
The special rule is take a drink anytime someone says, at least they're talking.
Thank you for that. That was a real gift. Yes. So, yes, it was so unexpected. It was so fun. As a fan, when that happened in the middle of season 6, did you see it coming? Had they built up to it? Or were you like, what?
I think it was fairly mind-blowing because I never seen a show sort of break the fourth wall in such a cheeky, funny, creative, original way. And I think I think it's possibly my favorite episode. Because it hits on what I think Supernatural is on all cylinders, because it's creepy and there's bad guys and there's real consequences, and they're on the run and they have to solve this mystery and put this and this and this together. But you get to see Jared and Jensen and Misha Collins, who plays Castiel, all be themselves.
Is he American, or does he have an accent that? Oh, he has an American accent in life.
He has a very Californian accent in real life, yes.
I thought I picked up on somebody, trying to hide a slight European accent. Go on. He's delightful, that actor, Misha Collins.
He is absolutely one of my favorites. I participated in his scavenger hunt for years and years, the greatest international scavenger hunt.
Cool.
Which is another whole nerdy thing we could talk about one day.
I love
yes,
it.
Jot this down.
But I can't actually do it. Is it over?
It's over, yes. Fortunately, 2022 was the last year.
Okay. So this episode becomes about them. They don't know it, but they are actors in the series, and they have to find their way back to their real existence as brothers hunting ghosts. So, but they're stuck with the lovely Brian Doyle Murray, whom I love. And I actually got to work with him once, and he told me he had a dog named Mandy, so he loved me. And he was just such a kind, funny, giving guy.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So anytime he pops up, Jer and I are like, oh, Brian Doyle Murray. Like, he's just such a stalwart of TV and film.
He brings so much. He's in so many things, and he just instantly brings like a charm and likability to it, where you're like, oh, everything's okay now. He's here.
Yes. Yeah, and he was the director, and they used all the real people's names. So he was playing the actual executive producer of the show, Bob, right? And
Singer, yes.
Singer. And at the end, they called in Eric Kripke, although it wasn't him. I looked it up. It wasn't really Eric Kripke.
Wasn't really him, nope.
It was such a fun, self-deprecating, self-referential nod to TV and to the genre they're doing. I adored this episode. I thought it was so well done. And had I only dropped in on this, I would have been able to follow everything.
Okay, good. That's what I really wanted to because I suspected that you could jump around like this. And if you've seen the pilot, you could sort of put 2 and 2 together and be like, okay, they're saving people. They're hunting a thing.
You are
I don't need
quite
to
a
know the
Sherpa,
details.
my friend. You are quite a Sherpa. You really chose well. The way they send everything up in this episode, but kept the through line of, oh, no,
Mhm.
there's a bad guy, and now he's been released into the Hollywood set. And I called him the Bizarro Oscar Nunez. I don't know if you're familiar with Oscar
Yes, he
Nunez.
really looks like Oscar Nunez. Yes, very
So,
much.
right? And at one point, the guys have to kick his ass because there's no magic in Hollywood. So it's
Mhm.
just real fist fighting. And the crew catches Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles trying to beat an extra to death, is what they say. And
Yeah.
then they keep calling him, is that the extra you tried to kill? Oh, the extra they beat? It was so funny that they were using Jared and Jensen's real names,
Mhm.
and it was layer upon layer of meta. I really enjoyed it.
And there's a lot of real stuff in that episode too. Like, so the wedding pictures of Jared and his wife were real, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
some of the
Genevieve Padalecki
Padalecki.
plays his wife in this episode, and I guess she was playing Ruby in episodes prior. So,
Yep, she was a cast member on the show for a long time.
and she's teeny tiny.
Yeah, he's a giant man.
Oh, okay. Okay. So maybe she's not that tiny, but I wanted to put her right in my pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And if I need help in Dungeons and Dragons, maybe I could. But she's adorable, and I liked knowing it was his real wife, and he was acting weird, and she was like, "Jared, you're acting weird. This is real." And it was just fun.
It was lots of fun. And I love the part where one of my favorite things is when actors have to act like they're acting.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're like, if there's a key, there must be a lock. And they're sort of
Mm-hmm.
doing like a Shatner impression almost as they're trying to act and like hit their mark and remember their lines. And
The shooting montage was hilarious. When they're trying to shoot a scene, the way those two guys, it was that Ricky Bobby doesn't know what to do with his hands
yeah.
stuff. Jared Padalecki was like putting his hand on his hip, and then it would switch. And the next time they did it, and he was they were delightfully funny and awkward. It was so great.
Mm-hmm.
On a
Yep.
personal note, my son Casey just turned 14. He was in the next room on his Oculus. He happened to call his friend Sammy to play
Oh,
Oculus. So I got to drink
Sammy.
again.
Yay.
We counted it. Every time he's like, no, Sammy, come on. Bruh, Sammy. I was like, well, thank you, Casey.
Take a drink.
Right?
Take a drink.
So it all worked out.
Although a lot of people die in this episode and you don't necessarily know their names. So that rule hits hard in this one.
Oh, the end was just
Death,
I funneled.
yep.
I funneled a half a bottle of Chardonnay at that point because it got real intense at the end.
It does, yes.
So yeah, that got me completely hooked. That's the point at which Jer said, we should watch this show.
It's a great show.
Right? Episode 1 was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Okay.
This one was really delightful. It reminded me a lot of, I'm a massive Scrubs fan. And
I
when
love
they
Scrubs.
did the musical episode, or when they broke the fourth wall, I mean, it's just, that's the kind of stuff I really love. So
Yeah, me too. I'm a nerd for the nerdy nerd stuff. And like when shows get nerdy and break the fourth wall, it's just, it's a treat.
yes. And then they did it even more so in season 10, episode 5, called Fan Fiction. And then they brought in my brand of nerdiness, musicals.
Musical theater. Yes.
So at this point, the Supernatural brothers have been turned into a book series, like a YA book series. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And some overachieving high school nerd has turned it into a musical, and they're going to perform one night only Supernatural the musical at their school with an all-female cast with kick-ass voices. I didn't deep dive on them because it's hard to, on IMDb, with after 15 seasons, it's hard to find out who played what. Do you know what I mean? You scroll and you scroll. Yeah. And
there's a wiki that's pretty helpful that we use a lot on the podcast, but you have to go to that level. You have to dive into a wiki to find out who some of these guest stars are and stuff.
Right.
But when they sing "Carry On My Wayward Son" at the end, it brings a tear to my eye.
It was so good. Now, again, I take umbrage, and I had to ask Jer at this point how to spell umbrage, but I take umbrage. So they're doing a musical, but they're using film terms. They say, cut, everybody back to 1. Those are not theater terms, my friend.
Nope.
That was not well researched. I have issues. Eric Kripke is gone at this point from the writing staff, so it's not his fault.
Yes.
But yeah, I was like, what? They're saying cut and back to one in the theater. Not on my watch.
Nope. But they did make up original songs.
Yes, they did. And those voices. Have you ever done a dive to find out if they were Broadway kids or?
No.
Now, luckily, one of them was playing a character with angel wings. So I took some liberties and I drank. I ganked my drink, I think. I don't know if I did.
You did.
I'm not sore today, so I don't think I properly ganked. But, but yeah. And then, so they create this whole thing where now the monsters are using this musical to come out. And it's a scarecrow.
A scarecrow is the puppet of the main monster, who is Calliope, who is like the patron goddess or whatever of creativity and stuff. So she's like stealing them because they're being so creative,
but not killing them. So, and I took some drinks when she crept out and grabbed them. But then they weren't dead. They were all in the basement.
Nope, they're not dead. They're just
waiting to be slimed like the Nickelodeon Teen Awards. But
yep.
But Calliope looked like Chewbacca had sat under the dryer too long. Right? Nailed it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? I mean, it was a weird, not scary being.
Yes. Yeah. It was very like neutral kind of looking. Yeah. Creepy. Creepy, but not scary.
Yeah. The guys at first come into the high school judging it and what is this nonsense? And of course they get swept up and they end up liking the musical and it becoming a part of this team, this gang of nerdy girls making a musical. And it's just, I don't know. It was all wink, wink, nod, nod. And I love that, because how do you sustain a series without turning it around and acknowledging what you're doing?
That episode really lets you know that the show also has a lot of heart, and that there are surprisingly episodes that are going to be a little bit like tearjerker-y. And they're going to have just that like soft spot where it stops being so like, oh, Sam and Dean, we got to go save people and hunt things. And it gets a little more like, oh, mushy on the inside. It has a lot of heart.
An episode like this, or like French Mistake, do they serve as a palate cleanser and then it goes right back to its sincere form?
Yes. Yeah. So there's always a big bad for every season. There's a big arc and a new mythology for each season. It's really, even though I've seen every episode multiple times, it's so hard to remember all of the different big bads that they fight. Eventually they go against the darkness, which is what was created before the light. And then they fight God, and like, they take on everybody.
That's where I get lost as a non-nerd when they start referencing archangels and demons and lore and thousands of years ago. I don't follow it. And that's what I'm trying to change about myself. Like, why do I roll my eyes and go, I'm out? Now they're talking about these, right? It was, at first it was two hot guys in an Impala. I'm down. Now they're talking, and by season 6, they were talking about angels and demons. And I just get too overwhelmed with the lore.
And it is pretty overwhelming, but the main arc for each season is kind of its own thing. So like season 7, they deal with the Leviathans. Okay, we beat the Leviathans. The Leviathans are gone. Season 8, we're going to deal with the alphas, the first creature of every genre of scary creature. All right, we beat them. They're gone. Get them out of here. Who's next? And there are some recurring bad guys that come through and have like seasons long arcs that last for a long time, so you have to like pay attention to, but mostly the lore is kind of encapsulated, so each season has its own big bad.
I think I'm also having a big realization. I don't know if you can feel it. Is there smoke coming out of my headphones?
Yes.
I think some of why I lose focus about the lore is because it's often presented as a big monologue. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one character talking, and you know why I did this because thousands of years ago. And it's just like that way of getting information across is, it loses me. I would
It's
rather a
tedious.
scene. I would rather, I would rather go to flashbacks where I can see what you're talking about. But I tried to watch for work. I had to watch scenes from the Neil Gaiman American Gods. And
Yes.
essentially, that's
That was
just one
very dense.
monologue after another of
Yeah.
from actors I worship. But I couldn't stick with it because it was just, let me explain over a 5 to 7 minute speech.
Yeah.
And so I think that's
That
what takes me
series
out.
was tough for me too. And I
Okay.
read the book, so I like knew what all the speeches were going to be, but that one was tough for me. I wanted to hang in there for Gillian Anderson because she was so spectacular.
Uh-huh.
But I dipped out on American Gods too.
Okay. I mean, I was only watching sections of it, but now that I'm remembering that and comparing it with this, and when we talk about lore, I think it's don't monologue. Give it to me in other ways so I can stay interested. I don't have ADHD or anything, but I think it loses me when it's just a person talking and circling
Yeah.
good guys and talking and circling good guys. It's
Yeah.
I want more.
There is some of that in Supernatural, but I think they spice it up enough so that you're never like really just like, oh, this episode is all lore. This episode is all monologuing. It's they sprinkle it in with enough fun, I think, to keep you hooked.
Certainly from what I saw, I was hooked. And I feel like it's the kind of show that if next time I get a cold, I'll be like, you know what? I'm going to go back and watch the rest of season 1 and see how this turns out for these guys. I really, and the humor just goes so far for me. When you're going to wink and let me laugh at you, I'm down. And they really do. They embrace the humor. And then I just have a quick question before we wrap this up. Who was the publisher at the end of at the end of that episode? He comes into the school theater and he's like, this play was great. I have something. And clearly he was a character who was going to do something. No?
That is God.
Yeah. My instincts are correct. He's a guy who's going to do something.
Yeah, he's a guy who's going to do a lot of things. That's
Okay.
Chuck. Chuck is God. They fight Chuck in the last season. It's very intense.
Okay. He looked like a Matthew Morrison type. Am I remembering that? This was 2.5 glasses of Chardonnay in. So
yes, he's like a nerd within the nerd universe. So if the boys are the jocks of the school cafeteria of Supernatural, he's the nerd. He's the improv nerd.
I have to say that of all the 5 episodes of my show I've done, this is the closest anyone has gotten into pulling me into nerddom. So thank you, Krissy Lenz, for choosing this. It was really fun, really enjoyable, and just nerdy enough that I could follow it and stay totally engaged.
Excellent. And thank you for approving of my theory that these 3 episodes will get someone hooked on Supernatural.
Beyond, I would bottle this and market this approach. Reach out to Krissy. I don't know. So let me get some of my business out of the way.
Do it.
Make Me a Nerd is a production of True Story FM, TRUSTORY FM. Pete Wright is our brilliant leader and engineer. My theme song is Wonderstruck by Jane and the Boy. And you can always reach out to me on socials on Instagram at Mandy_Kaplan with a K _Clavens with a K. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. Tell me what you think. Reach out, make recommendations, pick up an argument with me about some of the things I'm saying about these things. I'd love to hear from you and talk to you. And lastly, you can visit makemeanerd.com, which has all the links to all the places to listen, has links to Discord to reach out to me that way. And you can please consider joining this little family $5 a month gets you extra access to me on a private Discord channel. We'll come up with fun ways to reward the members, and it really helps me to keep going on my journey. Krissy, I know you already told the world what you're up to, but remind us what your podcast is called. Your 2 podcasts?
It's
3?
called 2 right now. It's the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast, and Gank That Drank, a supernatural drinking game podcast, both available on True Story FM and wherever fine podcasts are downloaded.
And I actually did an episode of the Totally Awesome 80s podcast.
Yes, you did. We talked about Grease 2. That was a
The
great
best
episode.
movie ever made. Your partner did not think so. He
hated it.
Yeah. Yep.
He hated it.
Yeah, he and I, it was a real Sam and Diane situation. I wonder if we'll end up making magic happen. He was not pleased with me.
No. We'll have to pick a new movie and have you back again.
Anytime, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this. Everybody check out her podcast, and everybody come back next week to check out what nerdy thing I'm trying. Take care.
Woo.